obviously the gathering this evening is at the King's request. It's a reception to host those who have come to pay their respects from far and wide. As is often the case, I often take the opportunity to have conversations with those for whom I already have relationships and know relatively well, as would New Zealanders. And so I expect that there won't be much time for long conversations with too many.
How does it work? Is it like a regular party? Can you just walk up to people, or are you...
And look, whilst I can't give you the exact details of the format of this particular reception, certainly in the past for gatherings that have been hosted by the Palace, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, for instance, they are as you would expect with any other reception. Just at the end of the day, a group of humans who haven't at this point in time have a particular responsibility. That means that they're in the room. But it is much as you would expect any reception, just people talking to one another.
And you mentioned the 10, is that right? As in the number 10?
So, well, it's, yes, ours is slightly different because we have an additional 5, but yes, so we have more than 10 ultimately in New Zealand's delegation because of the extra invitations we have through our VCs and ONZs.
Do you think it's quite a representative group of Aotearoa just in terms of the diversity of who's among them? You know, we've got giants of New Zealand, like historically as well, and then you have the much lower level, not to say they're any less important, but just in terms of, who they
and this is a very difficult exercise. I think ultimately the request from the Palace was to have those who could demonstrate the Queen's connection and the areas where she's connected with New Zealand and the Palace has. And so then it's upon us to pull together a group of people. There's also, of course, the logistics of who's able to be present, travel for that distance and be here for this period of time. But look, within that group you have representatives of sports, of business, cultural activities, and of course, incredibly importantly, Māoridom.
Tell us about that, the large Maori delegation. Tell us about that relationship between the monarch and Maori, and how do you feel about bringing them on this delegation to go to the state?
Of course, Māoridom will always be best placed to speak for themselves on their relationship with the Palace, with Her Majesty. But certainly from our perspective, it was incredibly important to have the likes of Kingi Tuheitia present. He has had a relationship, as is his household, with the royal household, and so having that representation, I think, was key. We also have the likes of Tātipene, New Zealander of the Year, but of course also a giant within Māoridom, and others in the delegation, and I think it's incredibly important we have that representation.
So, Minister, what will it be like sitting in the Abbey tomorrow, do you think, when it really hits you that this has happened?
I think one of the things that has stood out the most to me during this period is often the silence, because the sheer scale of people who are often present in these ceremonial activities, and yet it is often so silent. I suspect for the service tomorrow there will be moments of just that sheer silence and reverence, despite there being such a huge number of people who have come to pay their respects.
What do you make of the treaty relations under Queen Elizabeth with Māori?
Well, I think it probably would not be for me to be the sole person to reflect on a relationship that has spanned across 70 years of service. There will be those much better placed to give their reflection on that. But what I've simply observed is that in the times that Her Majesty has been visiting New Zealand, that she has reflected on the evolution over time, the work that has to be done, and in my mind, the work that must continue to be done. But it will be always for Māoridom to reflect their own relationship with Her Majesty.
Just on that relationship, we've just had Sir Tiffany here saying that he is happy with the current constitutional arrangement because he would prefer not to see a party politician elected in that role. Is that reassuring for you, given your position on the matter?
Oh, well, look, my position on the matter is that change will not occur quickly. Whilst I believe it is an evolution that will likely occur over my lifetime, it's not one that me or my government intend to instigate. When it comes to New Zealand, it will be a significant conversation. It's a big step change, and of course, what it would mean for the treaty is significant. So it's not something to be rushed into, and it's not a conversation we intend to start at this point.
Certainly, but if considering that we're hearing that kōrero from such a prominent leader within Māoridom, how does it feel for you to hear that from Māori, that they are happy, or that Sir Tipene is happy with the current arrangement?
And there'll be a range, and I don't see my position as that distant from Tā Tipene's, because it's a reflection, I think, of the continuity and the stability. Equally, of course, you will always have seen with Governors General, there's been a very cautious approach to not having anyone in those roles politicised. So I understand that sentiment and share it. But this is why I think this will be a long conversation for New Zealand, and it's not one that will be entered into lightly, and nor one I intend to start.
It's been such a big couple of days. What does it mean to be able to have a slightly more light-hearted social setting with the delegation just now?
I think stepping into a room full of New Zealanders who feel the gravity of the moment that they're here for, and also that sense of responsibility. Everyone here, including myself, feels very lucky and privileged to be here on behalf of New Zealand, and that was the overwhelming sentiment. People feeling hugely humbled to be here on behalf of a whole nation of people who are wishing to pay their respects.
And have you had to give anyone advice, or do you have any advice for some of the delegation?
No,
some
not
of them
at all.
haven't been to events on this scale.
I have not been to an event of this scale, and I think very few in the room probably have anything to compare it to. It's a unique experience for everyone. There's a sense of solidarity in that, I think. And in these moments as well, I think for me, it's very levelling. We're here on behalf of Aotearoa New Zealand. It doesn't matter our positions now, our positions previously. We're all here for one purpose.
And is that something you've thought about in terms of tomorrow? A few thousand people in that room and the whole world is watching, and you're in that room. Have you thought about how that might feel?
No, I don't think they're there to watch us. They're there for their own purposes, to share their own reflections in their own moment. It's only about one person tomorrow.
Can you just briefly outline the calibre of the people that are going tomorrow? You mentioned in your speech the calibre, and I was just wondering if you could expand on that.
Yeah, and what we've brought together here are representatives from Māoridom, reflecting our cultural connections here with the UK, education, business, sport, and of course we even have in the room an ex-General Secretary from the Commonwealth Heads of Government and Governor General. But we've also wanted to reflect also the position of young people, the next generation. Trying to do that within a small group is no easy task, but I think New Zealanders will see some names they recognise and others that they will definitely recognise in the future.
But a pretty impressive room.
It's an impressive room, but Aotearoa New Zealand is a special place with special people, and this is simply a reflection of that.
Thanks, Veronica.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. To stay up to date with all the latest news from the New Zealand Herald, click the subscribe button below or check out one of the videos here, and head over to nzherald.co.nz for more details on these stories and more.